Hey everyone, when I help individuals with retirement planning, I'll often dig in a little on estate planning. And this is where things will often hit a snag. If it's for a couple in my office, they'll pause and look at each other, or if it's on the phone, there'll be a long pause. But it seems like more often than not, they'll say something like, well, we need to get that done, but we haven't because of, and then fill in the blank here with one of the long list of reasons that people have for delaying estate planning. Very few of the people that I come into contact with actually have a current estate plan in place. They'll often have a will that may be 10 to 20 years old, and now their personal situation has changed, or they may have a trust that some annuity salesman sold them back when that was big. But very few have clarity about exactly what happens if they become disabled or die. So today, I wanted to invite my personal estate planning attorney on and have a conversation with him about how to move from where you may be now, where you don't have clarity on exactly what happens if you or your spouse becomes disabled or dies, to a place where you have confidence that you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's. Now, if you've been around my content for long, you've already met John Ross. For a number of years, he and I co-hosted one of the highest rated retirement planning podcasts on iTunes, but then life got busy for both of us, and sadly, we had to hit the pause button on the podcast. But he's still in the background, giving me assistance and guidance that I can pass along to my clients. And today, he's joining us again. Hey, John, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
So I know how busy your schedule is. You sit across the desk every day with meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And the one thing that you're discussing with them is estate planning. So would you say that most of these meetings are helping people get their estate planning set up, or is it fixing mistakes or maybe the failure to have any estate planning?
You can actually probably split my practice in half as far as that goes. I have we have what we call our pre-planning clients, right? Those are the folks that are coming in. How do I protect myself in the future? How do I protect my children? How do I avoid taxes? How do I shield assets from creditors? Things like that, right? So these are my pre-planning clients, and then literally about half of the other client base, we call these our crisis. Mom's had a stroke. She's going to the nursing home. We're afraid we're going to lose the house. I've been sued and I'm trying to figure out how to protect my assets. Somebody has died and they didn't have any estate planning in place. Somebody's become incapacitated and they don't have any estate planning in place. And we're trying to fix all of these crises out there. And I would say our practice probably mirrors the nationwide statistical average, which is that about, last I looked, seemed like the AARP had done a study on it and said something like only about 58% of the population has any sort of estate planning in place. And so that probably is going to be, I've never run the numbers in the firm, but it's going to be right around that same 50-50, 60-40 split.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I've even noted. I sit down with individuals who have large retirement portfolios. They've been very diligent in saving. They've had very successful careers. And when you get to the point where you ask them about estate planning, it's like, no, we don't have that in place yet. Or they may say, well, we had a will done 30 years ago, when the kids were little. So
Right.
There is a large failure to plan out there. So let's talk about that.
Yes.
Let's talk about,
right. So
where
that's
does a person need to start with estate planning and what are the steps they need to take?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that you've got to do it, right? I mean, this is the easiest thing in the world to put off. I'm guilty of it. I know you're guilty of it, from personal knowledge, right? I don't know how many estate plans I did for other people before I did my own, right? So and this kind of delay of doing anything, right? This failure to act, often until it becomes too late. This is not a new phenomenon. I mean, people have been doing this for thousands of years. We can go all the way back to take Isaac for example, right? For any of your heathen viewers, that would be Old Testament, right? Isaac from the Old Testament, he's got his two boys, Jacob, Esau. Of course, the dad's favorite is Esau, the big man's man, big, he's big, kind of described as a hairy kid, right?
Yeah.
Big. I always, in my brain, I always think of like 1970s Burt Reynolds, right?
Right.
Hairy chest, just this kind of that classic man's man, right? Big hunter and all of that. Of course, then he's got his other son, Jacob, right? And Jacob's kind of a mama's boy, and I mean that kind of plays out, right? Because the mother, Rebecca, Isaac's wife, Rebecca, she certainly favors Jacob. But if you go back, particularly into that time frame, when we talk about things like wills, I mean, the first recorded wills go all the way back into biblical days, right? Now, folks like Isaac, they didn't have a lot of assets, but they had knowledge, and that's where the real value was. And so you'll see it referred to, like in the Old Testament as bestowing the blessing, right? Isaac's going to bestow his blessing on Esau, but that's essentially what we would refer to as making a will, leaving his value to his oldest son. And that's what you did back then, right? The man, he left his estate to the oldest son. That's the entire Jewish tradition. Everybody did it. Everybody knew what Isaac's plan was, right? This was common knowledge.
Yeah.
I hear this in my office all the time, right? Well, my daddy wanted this. My mama wanted this. Well, did she write it down? Did she do anything? No. And this is the same thing with Isaac, right? Everybody knows his plan. He's going to leave everything to Esau, but he doesn't do it. He waits, he waits, he waits. Finally, we get to a point where he's bedridden, he's blind. He knows he's about to die. In our practice, we actually have a name for this. We call this frail, vulnerable, but not incompetent. Right? This is where I've seen clients who were CPAs, physicians at one stage in their life, and now in their very elder years are falling victim to some of the most obvious scams, or being influenced by a child that they would have never let influence them in the past, right?
Yeah.
Because they're frail, they're vulnerable, they're just not, but they're not incompetent. They're just frail and vulnerable. This is Isaac, right? He's blind, he's bedridden, and even then, he's still not ready. He grabs Esau and he says, "Hey, look, I'm gonna do my estate plan, but it's always, well, we're gonna do this first, right?" And in this case, he says, I want my favorite meal. Go out and hunt me some food and bring that back, and we'll make the stew. And once we have that favorite meal, I'll bestow my blessing upon you, right? That's the whole deal. So Esau, being the dutiful son, off he goes, right? Off he goes out into the woods. He's going to go do the hunting. Meanwhile, though, we've got Rebecca. Mm-hmm. Rebecca's got her ear to the door. She hears what's going on, and she's looking over at her favorite boy, Jacob. And she's looking at him saying, "Look, you're about to miss out on this deal. You need to get in there, pretend like you're Esau, and get that inheritance," right? And of course, Jacob, he's like, "Look, Mom, I'm a little skinny guy. My brother's a big hairy beast of a man. There's no way Dad's gonna understand. He's not gonna be tricked by this." And she's like, "Oh no, he's so blind, he's so frail, he's so vulnerable. All we gotta do, we're just gonna wrap you up in some goat fur, send you in there, because that old fool, all he'll be able to do is just reach out and touch that goat fur. And when he feels that goat fur, he's going to think he's talking to his big hairy boy Esau." And that's exactly what they do. And Esau, or Isaac, he bestows his blessing on Jacob, and the rest is history, right? But this is an Old Testament example of the failure to plan in advance, and the consequences of it.
Fantastic example too.
Yeah. Again, nothing new under the sun, right? That's also coming from some Old Testament out there.
So you've got these individuals who, like Isaac, push it off until it's almost too late. But then you've got the people who did planning earlier, and they haven't updated them as their family dynamics have changed, as other things have changed. So when you're building an estate plan, how often do you need to, once that's built, how often do you need to go back in and review that, and then get that modified. And one of the big questions that I get is, well, Devin, I used X attorney and now he's retired or dead or, has moved on to Florida.
Right.
So what do I do then? So in these cases, let's talk about how often you need to get that reviewed first. So let's say I've got my trust set up. John, you did my trust for me, and I've got that set up. It's a big, massive binder of stuff I don't really know what to do with, but my family dynamics have changed some since you set that up. What do I need to do?
Right. So here's what I often tell my clients. I say, first of all, anytime there's a major change in your family dynamics, give me a call. Maybe we don't need a whole sit down hour and a half long appointment like we did when we were first meeting each other and I'm having to learn everything about you. I now know a lot about you, right? But if you had um, if you had a death in the family, if you maybe at one point your children were minors, now they're successful adults, or maybe they're not successful adults, maybe one of them's a crackhead, right? Who knows what the situation is? But when you're having these major changes in your family dynamics, that's when you need to revisit this. Who knows? Again, you may not even remember what all you put in there. So if you say, well, if I'm incapacitated, I want my son to handle business for me, but he's sick, he's moved away. Maybe there's just been a falling out in the family and you don't have the contact with him, whatever the deal is, right? But you've had this major change in the family dynamics that needs to be something that where you get revisited. So beyond that, then um, anytime I tell them, I said, look, hey, maybe everything's going great, right? Nothing has changed in your family dynamics. Everybody's doing wonderful, same as they were when you came in, but it's been a year. It's been 2 years, right? Give me a shout, maybe an email, maybe a phone call, 5 minutes of, hey, John, have there been any law changes?
Yeah.
Because you might know what's happened within your family, but you don't necessarily know what all has gone on up there in Washington or in your state capital, right? And these are the things that could have a secondary dramatic impact on your estate plan, right? Maybe one day you did not have to worry about the estate tax, but one legislative change and you do. Maybe your retirement assets, your IRAs and 401ks, if we had this conversation 3 or 4 years ago before the Secure Act, I would have made one recommendation. Now that the Secure Act has come in, if you have a large IRA, I'm going to be making a different recommendation. And I can't go back to I think 20,000 clients I've had in the past and try to figure out which one of them would be impacted by any given law change.
Right.
It's got to be up to them to reach back out and say, hey, has there been a law change that I need to know about?
Yeah. Perfect. All right. So step one, though, is to get a plan, right? Don't push it off till it's too late. That's a disaster. I've seen it. You see it on a daily basis, because when it comes time for it to be a crisis, then things get much more expensive, things get much more complicated, and people lose flexibility. And that's probably one of the most important things. So step one,
right.
Get a plan.
Yeah, get it done. Any lawyer out there who is being actually honest about it, and I know we have a bad reputation in the legal community, but any lawyer out there that's being honest would tell you that if you're talking purely from a lawyer's financial perspective, it's better for us if you don't do anything. It costs so much more money to fix your problems than it does to prevent them.
Yeah.
I would much rather prevent problems for people all day long. That's what makes me happy. I like seeing the comfort it gives to my clients. But if you want to talk about sending me and my family on vacation, don't plan. We'll clean it up later.
Well, very good. John, thank you so much for joining me today and reminding us all, step one, get a plan. Thanks so much. So after watching this, what should you do next? Well, whether you have an estate plan that just needs dusting off and updating, or if you need to start from scratch, you need to get in touch with an attorney who specializes in this area. This is important. Be sure to use an attorney whose practice area is centered around estate planning. not someone who does wills, trust, and divorces, bankruptcy, and criminal law. You need a pro. And if you're in the Texas or Arkansas area, I highly recommend you get in touch with John's firm. I'll link it up in the comments below. But if you're not in one of those states, go to the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys and use their Find a Lawyer button. And I'm going to link that up down below as well. Thanks for watching.